Welcome to the AIPC interviews, where I talk to members of the artful eye photography community, among others, about them. It is Sunday, April the 12th, 2020, and you might remember this guest from the very first episode of this podcast series, where she was kind enough to interview me. And on this episode is Meri Walker. Hello, Meri.
Hi. It's a good thing to do this again.
Yeah,
I'm in the other chair now.
Yes, that's right. And I'm a little more comfortable in this chair, actually.
I bet before. You are.
Yeah. So you've been keeping well in all this madness of the world, I hope?
Yeah, I've been keeping well, and I have been keeping awake to this opportunity we have right now.
Yeah.
I wish I were more mobile myself, because I had a little accident. I'm not out making photographs the way I would be in the spring, but I am out there making them, but I'm just not making them as much as I would be.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful this year. It's so crazy. The world is so slowed down, and nature is not one bit.
Yeah, that's right. But I think everybody can say the same to a certain extent, that they're not out making the photographs that they'd like to. Of course, as we record this, we are going through the coronavirus pandemic, and this show won't be about that. I keep saying that all the time. So, but we do what we can, and we do what we have to do to make it from one day to the next here. So, and I hope your recovery is going well, and we'll just keep praying that it gets you right back to normal, right where you were before it all happened. So, we'll just get started and jump right into it. You've been using your iPhone. Now, this is a little different than I would say most of my guests have been, because you do things a little differently than most people with their phones. So let's start with how you got into iPhone photography, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, I got into iPhone photography when I bought my first iPhone 4, which was the end of 2008, like the fall, I think. And I bought it thinking that I would be using the phone more for computer connectivity and being able to do things that I didn't have to go back to my desktop in my office for. But I was also always curious about its camera. And I had all kinds of smartphones before the iPhone and played with all of those cameras because I am somebody who's been playing with cameras for a really long time. All kinds of cameras. Toy cameras, plastic cameras, view cameras, wide-lex cameras, film cameras, digital cameras, homemade cameras, every kind of camera you can think of, I think. So when I got my iPhone and started using it within the first few days, I was surprised at how good the camera was. And I didn't pick up any more of my big digital cameras for the next several weeks. I just carried the phone around, having the same kind of experience I sort of have had before with other kinds of odd cameras, Polaroid cameras, point and shoot cameras, underwater cameras, all different kinds of cameras. And within that first 30 days, I got so interested in the quality of what I could have just out of that tiny little device that I just stopped paying attention to my DSLRs. And that was now 12 years ago.
Yeah, sounds familiar. For me, it wasn't quite that long ago, but it sure sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, it's, they're fascinating. How can, how can
Yeah.
that
Oh
little
yeah.
rectangle, how can that little rectangle do so much and be so small?
Yeah. Oh, I
I mean,
know.
I think that's the great joy of it.
Now, one thing that you've talked to me about before is uh, how you find that using an iPhone as a camera immerses you in the photo or the photo taking process differently than, or even instead of, like, as opposed to, I guess you could say, the way it did with the DSLR.
Yeah. Well, because there's no viewfinder
Right.
on on the iPhone. And shortly after I was using it, maybe just with the iPhone 4 and then the 4S, because I got the 4S as soon as I could, because I wanted to be able to talk to Siri
Yeah.
and and have Siri fetch apps for me. Um, but I noticed that I was seeing differently when I was walking around taking images with my phone. I noticed that my peripheral vision had been activated in ways that it hadn't been activated for years and years and years using cameras with lenses with viewfinders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been paying a lot of attention to that over the last more than a decade. And interestingly, I have these couple of conversations going on with some neurologists and optometrists who I've been explaining my change of my experience and my vision to, and they're really interested in talking to me about my experience. And I was hoping that I'd be back over in New England this spring before we got things curtailed with the pandemic, because there's a very interesting neurologist at Harvard who was going to measure some things with me. So we're not going to do that now, but hopefully we'll get to do that in a while. So
Hmm.
I think that what's happened to my literal experience of seeing, being a human being, having eyes that get to see this amazing world we're in, has really been altered by my use of the iPhone. And because I'm not an optometrist or a neurologist, I just read some things and try and understand things better. I don't know that it's the phone that's causing it, but it's the only thing that's changed.
Yeah.
and and my photography is very, very different than it was when I was using lensed cameras with viewfinders.
Yeah. That makes some pretty good sense. I mean, you're about the especially with regard to the peripheral view of everything. It is so true. Like, now, having said that, with me, I find when I'm photographing with my iPhone, I don't have that sense of peripheral. Like, I mean, I'm aware that there's things, to the sides, but I'm kind of super focused on what's on the screen. Now, I don't know if it's a male female thing or what it is. Like, maybe like, oh, shiny red ball. My
Yeah, I
attention
don't
span.
know. I don't
Um,
know.
yeah, but it's I find that really cool that you immerse yourself in the whole experience like that. I think that's a really cool thing.
Well, I think another thing is I have gotten very interested because the phone does not allow me to make the kinds of images that I would have made with a telephoto lens.
Right.
I can't make those images. I can edit things in ways that simulate that I was shooting that way, and sometimes I do that, but it's not. It's just not what the phone is for. And I keep
Hmm.
saying to my students who complain about that, at first they're like, "Oh yeah, this is so interesting, but wouldn't it be great if we had a telephoto lens?" And I say, you do. It has two shoes on the
Yes.
bottom.
That's
And
right.
you can use your legs to go over there and get closer. You can telephoto your body over there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's part of what this change in perception is, Greg, because
Hmm.
I feel like I am a participant in my photograph even when I'm not in it,
Yeah, yeah.
because I get close enough, and also because I'm seeing, I look at the lens, I mean, at the screen, just like anybody else does. And that's why
Yeah.
I use Camera Plus and Pro Camera and other kinds of real cameras. And I set focus and exposure very judiciously. And I am playing with the exposure variable slider judiciously while I'm making an image. But what's happened is my brain is multitasking. I mean, I am seeing around me as much as I'm seeing on that screen. And it's registering in my brain as part of the picture, even if it doesn't happen to be in the frame.
Yeah.
And so I'm becoming much more fluid in the way I frame what I'm shooting when I'm shooting it.
Hmm.
And much less judgmental about it. I used to, I used to shoot film, and so we only had 35 images on that piece of film. So
Right. Yeah.
you're going to have to change the film out and start all over again if you just got crazy shooting, and it was going
Yeah.
to cost you a ton of money. So so my brain didn't think in successive iterations like it learned with digital cameras, and then now with the phone. Successive iterations is a different way of having a photographic experience.
Hmm.
It's like, I think David Hockney was trying to represent that when he was first doing his images with all the different pieces and putting all the pieces not in one square frame, but in whatever frame they were, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
piling on top of each other. I think he was pointing at what has been happening to change our minds when we have the possibility of successive iterations of an image. And then the task becomes, okay, which one is the best one? Which one
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the right one? Which one is the whatever judgment you want to put in the hole, the prettiest one, the ugliest one, the one that somebody's going to pay me the most money for. I mean, all those different criteria.
Hmm. Yeah.
They coexist. And what's happened for me with the iPhone is I'm seeing all different aspects. It's more like, sometimes I think of it, it's like the way you see those bug eyes when bugs have all those prisms and they see all those different facets of something,
Yeah.
and we can't even imagine how that goes into their brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of like a flat bug eye like that in my brain now.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
I may
interesting.
see, like, 2 days ago, I made a shot that is really sweet. It's just so pretty because my apple tree right outside my window here is blooming. And the blooms are so pretty. They're white and pink and dark pink. And they're fluffy. They're like little prom dresses. And so, I wanted to make some images of them to share with people. And as I approached the tree and started moving around, doing what I do as a photographer, I noticed that I had 3 ideas that were shaping the way I was approaching the tree. And one was, I need to include the sky behind the blossom. And one of them was, I need to include this colorful ground beneath the blossoms, because there's a turquoise planter box underneath there that could have been beautiful with it. And then, no, I need to include the rest of the tree behind the blossom. So that's 3 different angles, 3 different points of view. And I just let myself go for it, and
Yeah.
I just go for it. It's like, okay, I got that. Good. Here's the sky. Here's the sky. Here's the sky. Here's the sky. Here's the, oh my goodness, look at that turquoise box. Here's the box. Here's the box. Here's the tree. Here's the tree behind the blossom. And then I don't know, out of that frenzy of appreciation, which image is going to sing. And I don't ask myself to know until I go inside and look and see what I got.
So it's like putting them in the bank for later.
Well, it's like the bug eye, kind of. It's like, I don't know which is going to give me the best information, which facet is going to convey what I was feeling. Which one is going to have the information in it that allows me to attach my feeling. Yeah.
That's.
And
I've always
like that. I used to pre-visualize. I used to stand there and do, all these things, and then do 1 or 2 or maybe 3 shots, because I thought differently then. And maybe the iPhone really has changed my brain, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older. That could be it too.
Well,
but whatever it is, I love it.
And we've talked a few different times, and after every time we talk, I say to myself that was just one of the most deepest thinking people I think I've ever met.
I don't know. So I don't know who you meet. I have a lot of crazy friends that do this kind of thinking like I do. But that's the kind of people that would be friends with me.
Yeah. So you started with the 4, and so let's skip to today. What are you shooting with today?
Well, today I'm shooting with the 11 Pro, but I did something that was different, because from the 4 all the way up to my 8 Plus, I just got every new model because I wanted to see what I was going to get that I couldn't do before, and how much the memory was going to be, and how fast the processor was going to work for editing, and all the rest of those things. So at the 8 Plus, suddenly we jumped into this world where we're going to have AI, and we're going to have facial recognition and all kinds of things that I feel quite ambivalent about. So I didn't continue to upgrade. But this year, when I started seeing what everybody was doing in the fall with the Pro, the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max, I just couldn't stand it anymore. Okay.
You wanted to harness that power.
They're going to track me everywhere. They're going to do all these things that Apple's going to do that I don't want to do. But I want that camera.
Yeah.
So I got that for myself for Christmas this year. And so I'm crazy about it. And I got the Pro because it fits my hand. It goes back out of these Max worlds that the phone is too big to fit in a woman's hand. So I love this little Pro size. It's about the size of my 7 Plus. Yeah,
it is a good size. For myself, I think I'll get the biggest one I can the next time I upgrade. I'm on the XS Max now, but I do like the big screen, and sometimes I do get a little frustrated when I'm trying to do something with one hand, but I'll live with that and still have that big screen. But the ability to hold on to it, though, that's huge. You're gonna spend some time with this thing in your hand, and you do everything on the phone, right? You don't do anything on an iPad or or a computer.
No, I use an iPad.
You do use an iPad.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I have a big Mac desktop. I don't edit on it anymore. I use my computer to run my printer. That's it.
Oh yeah. So you do a little bit of editing on.
I don't want to sit in that room anymore. I don't want to sit in front of that screen for hours and hours with a mouse or a Wacom tablet in my hand. I'm tired of that.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of these apps and everything that the phone has. That's in the Apple ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably do 99% of my editing on the phone. I mean, I could do it on my MacBook Pro, but I don't. I prefer to, I mean, sometimes when I'm out doing a shoot, I'll get back in my vehicle, I'll go put it through a quick edit and post the darn thing right then and there. And that's the joy of it
Exactly.
all. You know,
Oh, and that's what I was doing too. From the very beginning, once I started sharing, it was my intention to be exhibiting around the world before I got home after breakfast.
yeah.
If I had made the image when I was sitting out at the restaurant and finished, or I made the image the night before or something, was editing in the restaurant while I was eating my breakfast, I posted it on the Wi-Fi before I was leaving, and I wanted it to be going around the world by the time I got home.
Yeah. Yeah, that is such a cool concept.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have some favorite apps that you like to use? Like I think iMengine is probably one of them.
Well, I'm Engine is useful for some things. I wouldn't say it's my favorite app, but it's useful for quick thinking about shape and form rather than detail.
Right.
So pixels, and no matter how good they get in resolution on our screen, sometimes I'm making something that I want to just be a straight photograph, and I want it to have the very best possible resolution I can get out of this device. And so I do use third-party camera apps. And iMengine can be used as a camera app too. But my favorite app in the world is Camera Plus. and that's because it allows me to go where I want to go, which is close to things these days.
Yeah.
I'm not shooting as many landscapes as I used to. If I'm going to start doing landscapes or things that are far away, mostly I'll go over to Pro Camera.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna experiment on purpose with a monochrome representation right in front of me when I'm looking at something that's color, I'll shoot with Blackie, because I already know how to think in black and white, because that's what I shot for years and years and years and years, black and white film.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, again, talking about that bug eye view, sometimes I shoot the same thing with Camera Plus and Blackie.
Oh, yeah.
And while I'm exploring it, I'll be deliberately right there in the field looking at that world in black and white, not having to go convert it later. But the other great thing about Blackie is it shoots both high resolution black and white and high resolution color. So I get two big fat tiffs every time I hit the shutter on Blackie.
Oh, yeah.
And I could use the color image. Now, it's kind of strange the way Blackie interprets color. It's not like any other camera app, but sometimes it's useful to have that capture. I mean, you can turn it off so that it just shoots black and white, but I have it on to shoot. Yeah. So the cameras, Blackie's great. Yeah. I mean, it's
like I have it. I've just never shot with it. I've just edited with it.
Well, and then we talked earlier, another time I told you about contrast.
Yes.
And playing around with contrast, pull contrast back out again right now that it's spring, and shoot with it late in the afternoon. It'll be really interesting because it changes your brain entirely to look at something that way.
Yeah.
But so I like apps that allow me to do, well, I say this thing, and sometimes people understand what I'm saying, and sometimes they don't really understand. But what my experience of iPhone photography is, which is different than any kind of photography I've ever done, is I have this ability to capture in good detail what I'm seeing outside of me. And then I have the ability to capture in good detail how I feel about it on the inside of me and put those together on the screen when I'm editing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not, I used to be a very serious documentary photographer. And my interest was getting the best facts I could get and keeping myself out of it. And I went through my master's program at the University of Texas, and I did my master's project and my master's thesis about the collapse of the subjective and the objective that was going on in the 80s with photography.
Oh yeah.
Because as soon as we had Photoshop,
Yes.
we didn't have photography that we knew before anymore. I mean, the photography, yes, you could alter things on negatives and prints and things like that, but not like you could with Photoshop. So that whole change of what a photograph was and is and could be expected to be was a big deal in the 80s. And when I was teaching there and then doing my master's work, I changed my mind about documentary. And so from that point forward, I wasn't any longer, just adding color to the surface of a print because it was the accurate color and it just didn't come through on the photograph. So rubbing Marshall's oils or rubbing different kinds of color correction powders into the emulsion in order to get a better print of what I had seen with my eyes, I began drawing on top of the images and adding things in various ways and putting myself back into the image. And so when I got my iPhone, I didn't have to go back to the studio to do that anymore.
Yeah. Really.
I could shoot and then go sit down and get a cup of coffee and then start doing what I wanted to do to the surface of the image right in the phone.
Yeah.
I was in heaven, and I'm still in heaven about that. I'm still in heaven. So I'm not always looking for realism. I don't even remember or know what that is anymore, actually. It's because I don't know what realism is. It's a political construct. But trying to accurately show somebody what I saw with my eyes has become a very different thing to me now than a mechanical capture.
Yeah.
And
you could almost you could almost say with your mind's eye.
Yes, exactly. With my whole eyes, outside and inside.
Yes.
So I can always do outside and inside now, both at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's just the greatest joy. It's like I don't know if you're not as old as I am, so you might not have had this, but when I was growing up, some people on the East Coast, maybe they didn't have it everywhere, but on the East Coast of the US, we had this thing that you could, it's when we only had 3 television stations, ABC, NBC, CBS, and they had this plastic thing that you could write away for that was called a winky dink screen. And you stuck it to your television set. And then when this children's show came on, the lady would draw on the screen, and you were drawing on the screen with her, with your winky dink screen and your crayons and stuff. So I don't know how old I was, 3 or 4 probably, when we had winky dink screens.
Oh yeah.
And I'm still doing winky dink screens, and I'm going to be 70 on this birthday, Greg. I really like to be able to draw right on the TV screen.
Yeah. Well, and with the iPhone, you can do that, and the iPad. And anybody that has seen your works of art that you've created will definitely see where that is just so evident. Like it's not very often you post just a plain old photograph anymore. It's there's always there's always different elements to it.
Yeah, you
And
never know. You never know. I posted one the other day, that little tulip, that little
yes,
tiny red tulip that said, "Ooh, I want to kiss you," because I
yeah,
didn't need to do anything to that tulip. I just looked down, and she just had her little lips pursed. It's like, look at that tulip. That tulip is so cute, and that leaf is going to go over there and kiss it. Which is what I
yeah,
saw when I was making the image, and there was nothing to do to it other than just make sure that I put a tiny little vignette on the edge. But
yeah,
it just
yeah.
depends. It depends on what the subject is. I
Yeah,
wish there
that's
were
right.
more children around me. See, if there were children around me, I might make more straight up photographs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because I love them, and all you have to do is just wander around with them. They're beautiful, and they do crazy stuff. But I
yes,
but
that's right.
I'm not around children very much right now. That might have to change after the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So where do you want to go with your with your art, your photographic art? Have you accomplished everything you want to accomplish, or is there still something that's uh, you know n- pulling you inside and saying, okay, this is what I want to do next?
Well, I've done so many things with it already, and in a million years, I would never have thought that I would, go teach for Apple in Boston, or go take college classes of photography students and marry them together with their photography instructors who didn't know how to do mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had, Harvard bought a bunch of my prints, big prints, to put in one of their patient waiting rooms in their wellness building. I've had a bunch of interesting sales. I've had many opportunities to exhibit. I've made a bunch of books. I think what's still left, and I have this in the back of my head, I just keep having it. This has been such a strange journey with vision, like I've been saying for 12 years. I've made, I don't know, lots more than 100,000 images. And I don't look back so much. I just keep looking forward. The most I look back is if somebody has a show, or if somebody saw something and they say, I want to buy that, or I want to hang that in the show, or whatever, then I have to go back and find it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Print it properly. But I just keep going into the present moment, which doesn't go back. So I do think lately I've been listening to these beautiful jazz musicians like Bill Evans lately. And there's some some pieces of music that Bill Evans wrote and performed in the 50s. Just an astonishing musician. But I keep thinking I want to make a little movie to one of Bill Evans' songs.
oh yeah,
Of all of going across time with the images, and that would require that I do it like I was scoring it, like his music. I was scoring my images against his music,
yeah, yeah,
and that's a big project, especially for
yeah.
the one piece that I'm thinking about. So I still want to do that, but I don't know when I'm going to do that. because what happens to me is the next day brings the next beautiful thing. I really am in kind of a wonderful state that I always wanted to be in. Like I saw in the last part of her life, Imogen Cunningham got into. I am in a state where I'm just fascinated with what's right in front of me photographically.
So
I
with
don't
this
have to go
piece,
travel somewhere to find an image that interests me. I could go walking for 5 minutes and find something.
yeah. So with this piece of music that you have in mind, um, are you saying you would shoot for it going forward, or do you have anything already that you might want to put towards it? Because it sounds to me like you're saying you're
Yeah.
just going to just, think about the music and go forward, shoot something.
No, not from the present. No, I'm talking about going back. I'm talking
Oh,
about opening my archive and playing the song
oh,
again and
okay.
again and again and again, and putting different pieces into it
Oh,
in
I see.
different
Okay.
for different lengths of time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about that because I have some friends who said, they'd like to have something like that they could see on their television set.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make a commercial thing. That's not what I'm interested in. It's a very personal thing. And,
Yeah.
Maybe it would be nice to show it somewhere. I don't know. But it's going to be a big bunch of work. So it would just require me to go back and look at the beginning and
Yeah,
keep
that's
going
right.
all the way there again. And I'll
Well,
get to that.
yeah,
I know I will get to it soon. I just don't know when,
yeah,
because
be
today
prepared to
is so
spend some
exciting.
time
Yeah, yeah. And
because
the thing is, you
you'll
also
get
have to
lost in it.
sit in front of. I know you'll have to sit in front of the computer again. That's the thing. That's
Yes.
why.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, my phone is my ticket out of detention.
Yeah.
Sitting in front of the computer for long periods of time, and using a mouse feels like detention now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I used to love
You-
it. I used to bathe in that, but I mean, I started doing it in 1983, and I am tired of it. And so are my
Yeah.
hands, and so is my back, and so is my neck. So I
hmm
can edit on my phone and on my iPad, and those places don't hurt.
Yeah, that's right.
so,
You haven't worn your finger down.
so I have to figure out if there's a way that I could do it on my iPad.
Yeah.
Because essentially I have to do it like I have to use a movie thing. I have to use something like Luma Fusion or
LumaFusion
something like
or
that.
iMovie or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could get pretty complex. I'm
Yeah.
still trying to sort out LumaFusion. It's a different animal than iMovie for sure, but it's pretty powerful. It's got some nice features in it, and
It does.
I kind of consider you a bit of a techie gal too, because because of where you've worked in the past and whatnot, and with some of the discussions that we've had about technology and that I think you get it. So I don't think it'll be too hard for you to achieve.
No, I could do it if I could if I can just
Yeah.
get my head into the place of accepting the discipline. Unless
Yeah.
somebody, so a while ago somebody made this little app, and let me see if it's right here in my phone. I made something with it. It's called Spark Camera.
Oh yeah.
And it is a way to put both video and still images together with music. But it's not like any kind of timeline you ever saw in iMovie or anything like that. It's its own interesting little interface. So I put a thing together that lasted about 5 minutes, I think, which I was going to post on Instagram, and then I forgot about it, so I need to go do that. But it's an interesting interface. I started thinking, maybe I could do a whole big long thing with that. I hate graphs. They remind me of math.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and I'm not so good at math. I'm really good at pattern recognition. but I'm not so good at sitting there and making sure that everything adds up perfectly. That's just not what I'm good at.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Spark here now. I've looked at this before. I've never downloaded it.
Well, you can use it for 30 days for free to see what you think about it, and then you have to pay a lot. So I stopped using it for 30 days. Well, but if I was going to make a big project like this, I'd pay a lot. If it would keep me from having to do grids in iMovie.
Yeah.
I like LumaFusion pretty well, though, too.
Yeah,
I could try.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But, I have 65 million apps. I need to go back into my app account. I haven't done this lately. I really have to go do that again, because the last time I did it was maybe 2 years ago. And at that point, I had 1,232 apps.
Wow.
And that was 2 years ago. So, I mean, it's a long trail from 2008 to now. And many of those apps don't work anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
And a great pleasure that I had 2 days ago was to take, I haven't gotten rid of my 7 Plus or my 8 Plus yet. I said I was going to go sell them, but I haven't taken all of the data out of them yet and put them into other things. So they're still here, so I can transfer images back and forth. But my 7, I very deliberately did not upgrade when they made the jump with the new OS back in what was that?
I think it was probably
17?
iOS 11 or something.
Yeah, I think 11. Yes, because that's so many developers who had tried so many wonderful creative things, and then they were giving it away for nothing, and then they couldn't do it anymore if they were going to move into Apple's model, and they were going to have to entirely recode the app, and they didn't have the money or time to do it.
That's
so
when they went from 32-bit to 64-bit.
Yes, and we lost some great apps. Well, I didn't upgrade my 7.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes I go back in time and I open up my 7 and I act like I don't have this 11 Pro. But I also act like I still have Painted Cam and Perfect Black and White and Hueless and a bunch of incredible apps which still run on that phone for me. So I can go in there and edit with them and get a Long Exposure Pro. If you had asked me what you asked me at the beginning of the thing about what's my favorite app, Long Exposure Pro was my favorite app in the world, and then it didn't make the bridge to past 11. And I loved it so much because you literally shot for seconds and in low light situations with long exposure, and all of the images were stacked on top of each other. Mm-hmm. And you use your finger your finger, because we didn't even have a stylus then, to go back and pull up the detail in various areas just a little bit or a lot. You could create the photograph you wanted out of all of those layers with just your finger on the screen.
Yeah.
It was astonishing, and I still love to play with it.
Slow Shutter Cam has a feature that is kind of something like that. If it's anything like I'm thinking that you're talking about here, but with Slow Shutter Cam, you can take a long exposure and you can
and
let's see the best way to explain this.
Pick the iteration that you want. Yes.
Yeah.
But you only get one. So what you could do with Long Exposure Pro is you had all of those iterations like you have in Slow Shutter.
Yeah.
And different ones of them were, because it was different points in time, especially if something was moving. I love to use it when things were moving.
Yeah.
You could pick the detail from one level and then the detail from another level and then the detail from another level, and they were all just in that one image.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I wish
it was
something
like painting,
I wish
like
that was
painting with light. It's like painting with light.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's too bad, some of those, geniuses back then didn't, or didn't or couldn't or whatever the word is, upgrade their apps to 64-bit and kept them alive.
Yeah, they just
With the
everybody couldn't
devices
get
we
all
have
the
now.
funding.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I
But
mean, slow. Oh my God, long exposure pro on this on the 11.
yeah.
Whoa, it would scream. It would just
Oh
go so
yeah.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
this has
what
been
I
a.
want
Oh,
what I
go
want to
ahead.
say though before we stop, what the main thing that I want out of my art. I told you about what I want to do,
Oh yeah, yeah,
making that show, and I've had so many wonderful opportunities. But what I most want to do is when we get through with this pandemic, it's just crucial to me in my heart of hearts that young people who can't afford to go buy big equipment and can't afford to go get a big Macintosh to do color editing on or black and white editing on, that I get more and more opportunities to share the photography aspects of what's possible with the phone with young people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean photography like, I don't mean just like how to shoot slow with studio lighting and how to shoot slow exposures and all those other things, but show them what they can do with their eyes, which is what a photography teacher does. But don't do it with the big cameras anymore. Just do it with the phone.
Yeah.
Don't even expect them to go to big cameras. Because whatever happens on the other side of this thing we're going through right now, everybody is going to be real poor, except for a very few people. And so whatever that is, 12 to 18 months from now, if they still have their telephones, they can still be creative and they can still be photographers. And I really want to help with that. I really want to help with that.
Well, that's cool.
I want all of us to help with that. I want all of the old people who have figured this stuff out, who are old photographers, to take those skills into their phones with young people. Yeah.
That's a pretty good cause to be part of. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic chat. I always love talking with you, and gosh, we could probably go on for another hour, but we better cut this off here now.
We should quit. Yes.
Yeah. So tell everybody where they can find you online.
iphoneartgirl.com and Meri, Meri Walker on Facebook, and iPhone Art Girl on Instagram, and iPhone Art Girl on Flickr, and Meri Walker on Dayflash, and Meri Walker in AIPC.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. You can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, on Twitter, Macmillan_photo. You're on iPhone Art Girl on Twitter too, right? Or
yes.
Are you on? You're on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, but not really. I mean,
not very active.
Post there, but I don't really use Twitter. I really communicate on Instagram and on Facebook, and on my own blog. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Cool. And I'm on Dayflash at Macmillan. You could find this podcast. It lives on artfulipc.com, and you can join the community at artfulipc.club. And I have a Patreon going to help support the community now, because we had to upgrade to a paid plan because we ran out of storage. People were trying to post photos and they couldn't. So I've upgraded to a community plan that allows us now to have unlimited storage, but there's also some other features like featured posts and things like that I'm still trying to sort out and see what I can take advantage of. I think there might be even a groups feature in there where you can start a group of, say, you want to talk about just one certain app with other people. I think we'll have that that capability now. And so with the Patreon, you can give $3, $5, or $10, and once the cost of the community plan is covered for the month, anything that comes in over and above that is going to go right back to the patrons in the form of a draw. So it will be, like an App Store gift card or a piece of gear or something.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I'm going to try to figure out something different every time. Because there's some really good apps out there that people would love to have, but they just don't want to pay for them, and for whatever reason. And with an App Store gift card, they'll be able to get them. So, that's just one thing. There's attachable lenses. There's little tripods, all kinds of things that people can get. As my way of saying thanks for supporting the community. So. I'm not looking at making a nickel off it. It was never my intention to do so. So that's what I want to do, is I want to, give back to the people that help support the cause. So you can find that at patreon.com/AIPC. And we have, I think, 11 patrons right now. So, it took off quite well, I think. And, we'll just keep that going. And if we run out of funding, then I may be forced to close it down. I really don't want to, but it's just a little too much for me to take on, by myself right now, because it's in American dollars and I'm a Canadian, and it costs me a lot more to keep that going. So, but for all the patrons that have supported now and in the future, I thank you so much for that. And I guess we will call this a show. So it was great talking to you again, Meri. Thanks for coming on, and we'll be seeing you around the community.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Greg.
All right, thanks.